So I'm jumping around a little bit here. This second video doesn't go in sequence with the first one, but I'm going to tell you about a time where I was managing just a single family property. And so this was a 3 bedroom, 1 bath, single family home, semi detached. And so the investor had purchased it off of a program that taught him like how you can get rich. And of course, that normally never works, or it's temporary and they realize they're in over their heads. So, um, anyway, the point is, he purchased this property. I managed it for a while. And at that time, I had a property management company with a broker, and I had someone else offer to join to merge our two teams together and have a larger property management company in the South Central Pennsylvania area. And so that really didn't end up working out the way that I thought it would, but that's for another story. We're talking about this property today, this 3 bedroom, 1 bath, just a regular single family home rental. And so at that time, I think they were renting out for around $700 a month. And so they were what I would call is my normal cookie cutter. Hey, this is just the average property that we run because we were running neighborhood properties. So you have apartment complexes, office buildings, mobile home parks. Then you have those scattered portfolios where you might have a single family, a 5 unit, whatever. And so I always just called them neighborhood properties. And so when I managed that property for a while, we merged in, and some of the properties had, kind of been left with the merged company as I started something new. I guess that's the easiest way to explain it. But anyway, so several years later down the road, this property came up on as a bank-owned property, and it was sitting for a long time. I think they started the asking price, I don't know, $35,000. And so I kept watching it, and I think it came down to $9,900 and nobody still bought it. The primary reason I think it was sitting is next door, the property had, decayed over time and gotten worse. And somebody was using it as their backyard was full of probably 100 tires, and it wasn't a big yard. So you couldn't go in the backyard. It was full of tires. And so anyway, I met with an agent. We walked through the property. I was familiar with it. I had managed it a number of years earlier. And so I asked the agent, what do you think we could make an offer on this property? What should we go in at as our starting offer? And he said, why don't we try around 7,500 because they're asking 9,900. And he said it doesn't hurt to try and see how much this bank wants to get rid of it, right? I said, well, if it doesn't matter and we're just trying to see, what the bank's willing to do, why don't we go in at $500? And he said, sure, I'll present anything. So if you want to make an offer for $500, I'll present it. And so we went in at 500, and they were like, get real, come back. Our counter is 9,900. And I said, you know what? 9,900, they're not even coming down, $1. So tell them I'm not buying the property. And they came back within an hour or two and said, hey, do you think you'd come in at, 7,500? And I said, no. I mean, my offer was 500. Like, meet me in the middle. Don't just come down a little bit. And so obviously they were very interested in getting rid of the property, right? Because they're coming back to me. I just told them I wasn't interested anymore, and they're coming back with counter offers. And I'm not offering anything at this point. So to cut to the chase, they came back and said, look, we can't believe we're saying this, but we'll sell it to you for $2,500 if you go ahead and sign the contract today. It's a cash deal, so we'll see you in settlement, in under 30 days, right? And so I said, sure, I'll buy it at $2,500. I manage the property. I know it's decent. So I'll have to fight with the neighbor next door to get things cleaned up and whatnot. But even the cosmetics of this property wasn't terrible for a regular rental property in that market. So it's certainly not a luxury property, right? So we didn't, you don't have to do a lot to it to stay within the same market that it's in right now. And so I made the offer, we signed the contracts of $2,500 and we went to settlement. It had oil heat. And I've always said to any property owner, if you have oil heat, you have to switch it to gas if it's available. If there's, the lines in the street out front, then you should switch to gas. Well, this house actually had it. I think the hot water heater was gas. So that was already in the home. There was already a gas meter there. There was just an old oil furnace. Still worked great, but tenants don't want to worry about filling an oil tank. You might have other experiences, but just on a vast majority of properties that I've had to deal with over 20 years, I've had better luck when they had gas heat. Much better luck, not even a question. The heat was never the issue. However, on a house with oil heat, it was always the question. It's what stopped us from being able to rent it. And so what we did was we went and put a new heating system in. We did some basic cosmetics, just, use the same color paint that was used there before. So quick paint job, had the carpet steamed, and basically pretty much had a tenant lined up to go in there. Meanwhile, I contacted the city and filed a complaint on the neighbor's property with all those tires. I jumped ahead here. I contacted the owner first of that property, somehow found that person, sent them a letter, whatever it was. They called me and said, sure, we'll, or they said, we don't want to sell the property right now, or something like that. And so I went to the municipality, told them, I can't have families living next to this house with the way, just look at their yard. And I turned my phone around and said, look at this. Would your family like to live next to this? And so I must have made a pretty good impression, because within the next 2 weeks, I got another phone call. Hey, I'll sell you this house for $500. I just want $500 at settlement. You can take the house. And again, this was more like it needed a lot more work than the house that I had just bought for $2,500. So I bought this house next door for $500, and I had a guy come clean all the tires out within the first week I owned it. And we started running new plumbing through the house, electrical. We started the renovations. We had a plan. We had a scope of work and contractors to do it. And I think I pulled them off because I had bought another house. That's for another video. But I think because the other one was quicker to turn over. So I was like, hey, we just settled on this one. This one's a quick turnover. Let's stop this one for now, because we were doing all new plumbing, electrical, new roofing, and whatnot. So anyway, we got sidetracked on that $500 property. That was next to my $2,500 property. They were attached. And my agent came to me and said, I'm doing this thing with some kind of real estate group where I go and I have to do a seminar. I have to teach these people about how to invest in South Central Pennsylvania in real estate. I never really asked a lot of questions. He said, do you mind if I show a couple of your properties? And, it's not hurting you at all. They're not going to bother you, or we'll be in and out. They pull up in a bus. These people unload, look at a property, get back on the bus, go to the next property, whatever. They pay to take this course. And so he didn't have really any other listings to show them at that time besides, I guess going through the normal realtor method of scheduling showings right through the MLS system or what have you. And so he wanted his own listings to show him. And then he came back that night he said, hey, another story, but there's another property we're getting all these offers on. And then that guy who made the offer on that other property, I said, why don't you go to him and say, would you buy this package deal on this street and this house? And if he does that, I'll put them all into one great big nice package for him. And he's got his portfolio footing in Harrisburg, South Central Pennsylvania region. And they came back, they said, yeah, we're gonna take that deal. And so we're going to pay you $45,000 for these two houses that I just bought for $500 and $2,500, and put money into them, but not an excessive amount. So anyway, I made a nice profit off of those two, and the other ones that we sold. I'll do the other ones on a separate video because I'm going to try to get them to upload photos of some of these properties, maybe even some of the work we did to some of the properties, just so you can see them before and after. But this one here, the $2,500 house, was just so neat because I used to manage that house. I was already familiar with it. We had tenants in and out of there. And so to buy it for $2,500 and be able to, by my own choice, switch it over to gas heat, and then do some real basic cosmetics and then resell it for $45,000. Those are some nice properties. Now, obviously the market's much different than when we did it years ago, and I know I wouldn't get it for $2,500, and I know that I wouldn't be selling them for $45,000 either, because the market's just the numbers are so much greater at this point. So anyway, that's my story about this property that I bought, and I kind of threw in as a bonus the $500 property because I sold them together for the $45,000. And so I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll have some more videos coming up with some interesting how-tos to look at heating systems, to look at cooling systems, electrical systems, some pointers of how I generally read the meters and keep that stuff organized. I'll go over how to evict a tenant, and the I was going to say the fun things you have to do with that, but I think evictions were probably one of my worst things that I like to do. It's just not fun. Dealing with the district justices and constables and everything that you have to go through. And we'll talk about all that stuff on another video. I hope you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for viewing this video today.